controversial subjects with the facts can be tense, but we are a sub-science here to make things make sense.
Your skin is the largest organ in your body.
We're talking about tattoos, of which I have 0 and Greg has
Dos.
So, like, I would say neither of us are personally that experienced with tattoos, but at least you have some.
Okay, speak for yourself. I'm a goddamn rebel without a cause.
I mean, I just think, like, some people have, like, hundreds.
Lots.
A lot of people, actually. Like, being in the city, I was thinking about it because of this idea and was just like, a lot of people have a lot of tattoos.
And we're going to talk today about...
how they're all fucked. No,
about the science of them, also the trends around them, and what's going to happen in the future, because it's really interesting. There's like an increase in people sort of having tattoo regret. To me, big cities do mean tattoos. Like, I feel like...
Well, it's just density. So I think you have more diversity to begin with, and then more people who are likely to want to be able to express that diversity.
And also counterculture. We'll get there too, the history of tattoos.
So
did you know that also if you ripped off your skin and stretched it out, it'd be 2 meters square? This is what happens when you like read
if you lined all your
stuff.
cells side by side, it would go around the moon and back.
Did you know that you lose 1 million skin cells every day, and 15% of the dust in your house is made up of dead skin cells?
Oh.
But like,
we definitely have old videos that are just like amazing facts.
That is literally from one of our tattoo videos.
No.
We did a video about tattoos, which is actually I rewatched and was like, oh, this is interesting. And I got my first tattoo, and then Jess got a stick and poke, and it was like kind of about the difference between like stick and
the
pokes.
different types.
Yeah, and I was like, stick and pokes are cool.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds. But is it more painful? Do you know?
They are supposed to be more painful because they essentially like take longer, and the person is not like controlling how deep it's going. It has to go into your dermis. Should we start by explaining how they work scientifically?
Yeah,
I can do
you
that.
take the wheels on that.
So before we get into the history, we can just start with like the science of why it sticks on your body, and it is kind of creepy. So like your epidermis, Mitch, your epidermis is showing. Lol, grade 6 laughter across the classroom. So your skin has epidermis, which is the outside layer. That's the one that does slough off. It, like, you do lose your skin cells, blah, blah, blah. If the needle of the tattoo artist were to just go to your epidermis, the tattoo would just be a temporary tattoo.
Right. Like, when you put a temporary tattoo on, it eventually fades away.
Yeah. I mean,
partially part of that reason.
Yeah. Interesting.
Right?
Like a henna.
Yeah, or even just like one of those little cute kid ones.
Yeah, but those could like wash off.
Yeah. They're just like peeling off.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm just saying if it stains some of your epidermis, eventually that will go away. Like even when you get like pen and stuff on your hands.
So the key is that when you get a tattoo, the needle's going deep enough into the dermis, which is below the epidermis, and that's more permanent. And what happens is it actually causes an immune response in your body. So your body freaks out because of inflammation and is like, cut, wound, send the troops. And then like macrophages, which are like the main ones, will go and try to clean up the ink. But the ink is actually so big, it gets caught in fibroblasts in the dermis, and the macrophages, like some of them will quote unquote eat it and then just like stay there. And essentially also the ink is too big for really your immune system to like do anything with it. Yeah. And so it's stuck in your dermis until you die. Although obviously with wear and tear, it will change and morph, and if
fade a little. Like,
yeah, and if you didn't die at like 80 on average or longer, don't worry, folks. Who knows? Like it would get worse and worse and more messed up.
Can I do a side note, and maybe someone knows the answer to this? I was thinking about the average age of death. Say it's 80. I know it's like maybe 78 for men,
but it depends
like
on the country.
for men. Right. I want to know how many people. This is morbid.
What?
Like between my age and what I'm expected to die.
Let's say 77.
Okay, say 77. So in the next 40 something years.
Oh God,
that's not that much actually. How many people will die before they hit that age? How many men will die before they hit that age?
In Canada?
In Canada, because I started thinking about average. So I'm just curious, like how many people don't hit the average?
I hate this. Thank God I'm not
I
high
think it's
on weed.
important.
If I was high on weed right now, I would be having a full panic
I
attack.
hate how you say high on weed.
Sorry. If I was stoned, if I was reefered, I don't like this. I'm scared. I don't want it. What?
Well, maybe
I'm panicking.
because I think sometimes we just assume
We're
tomorrow
gonna be
will
70.
come, you know, and that we will get to 70. And sometimes I was thinking like, Yeah, I just make all these assumptions around the idea that I will live till I'm around 75.
So we should go on another trip.
Well, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, if anyone, I was like, I wonder if that's got to exist, right? Because we're always told like the average age in each country and based on your upbringing and gender and stuff. But I'm curious, like,
what percentage of people don't make it to the average lifespan?
I want to know the
Canada?
absolute number. I want to know, like, of people around in Canada, how many men my age in the next 43 years will die that didn't make it to that average
in your
age.
So your year bracket, because you need to know that.
They don't have to be in my year bracket.
Why not? But then the number is going to be so arbitrary.
No, because it's about people who don't make it to 75 or 77.
Yeah, but
over the next period, I want to know, like,
until from now until you're 77.
No, until
I think it would be.
77.
I think it would be interesting for it to be like
because
your age.
Okay, this doesn't.
Yeah. Okay. We're back.
I hope somebody else understands what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do think I understand, but obviously, I wish I could.
You
say
had modifications.
Obviously, I wish I could say I was stoned so that I could be like, that's why I don't really understand. But. Yeah. So then it's that's why it's stuck in your dermis. That's why it's permanent. So it's like it's key that the needle goes.
Just like a tattoo.
What song is that?
I'll always love you. Isn't it?
You're so good at singing. It's so frustrating.
What's her name?
That was so good. I'm like, just sing forever.
Just how? No, that's not the same song, is it?
Keep going.
Jordan Sparks, Tattoo. Is that who sings it?
I want you to just keep singing. So.
Love you. Yeah, is it? No, that's hard for me to breathe, Jordan Sparks. Who sings Tattoo?
I always love you.
No. Just like a tattoo.
Hilarious metaphor. It's like sitting in the little music studio.
Always love you.
Mitch.
Just
I thought you were going to say.
Like a tattoo. Okay, Jordan Sparks, Tattoo.
Wow.
Okay, but I was mixing her other song with
We
Chris
miss you, Jordan. I'm sure you're not dead. I'm
No,
sure you'll
she's
make
not.
it to the average
Iconic
age.
American Idol.
Okay, Mitch, we've side noted so hard.
That's
Where
okay.
are we? Okay, so
yeah.
then the macrophages essentially engulf the cellular debris and they keep you in your dermis.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that was off. But yeah, and then if we think about the history of them, there was this like archaeological dig that was really cool. That was 2,500 years ago. This woman in Eastern Russia was found with so many tattoos on her body. And because she was like frozen, they call her like the ice princess. She was also found with marijuana on her. And they think it's because she had cancer in her body that it was probably being used as pain treatment.
The original counterculture.
Yeah. But apparently the tattoos were about allowing people in the afterlife to know who you were. So you would like tattoo.
Like information
this one had a
about
bunch of animals, but a lot of like, when you really go back, like for example, there was tattooing in indigenous cultures of North America before the British came. Like tattooing has been a huge part of many cultures, like Polynesian cultures for so many years. But some of the historical thoughts are that it was like you put what your life meant to you on your body. So when you die and go to the afterworld, it's like you can find other people who would recognize you. There's also tattooing in history that would have been like medical. So like they noticed that there was happening a lot in like joints and that people were tattooing the joints thinking it was like gonna help the pain, the gout probably of the toe. The toe would be covered in like these weird, almost like medical looking tattoos. And I was like, it is kind of crazy that we've been doing this for so long.
Yeah, tattoos are really fascinating, especially in the cultural aspect of it. I mean, obviously we live within a culture and it will probably be more interesting to people in the future. It's hard for me to appreciate it because I'm in it, but looking at like especially historical cultures or just cultures that are very different from our own and seeing how cool and interesting and like hearing about the reasons why they might do it is so fascinating because I'm afraid to get a tattoo.
Yeah, okay, so what is your...
It's a mix of like multiple elements, some of which I'm not like saying are good. I think there's like an element...
Christian?
Yeah, probably. No, it is. There's an element of purity that I don't want to hold on to. Of being like, oh, I don't...
Get a face tattoo.
No, I don't. This is problematic. I don't want to say this is a good thing, but this idea of like, oh, I want my body to just like be as it is. But that's like a huge privilege as well that I have. I think it's more fear and I've justified it. It's like cognitive dissonance.
Like you know
like,
for a fact you will never get a tattoo.
No, I don't know for a fact. But
Okay.
I for a long time when I was young, I was like, I don't want to modify my body because I want to, like, when I'm older, see what it will look like, quote unquote, naturally. In the same way with,
Whoa.
like, I don't really want to, like, have like other kinds of modifications to my body, but that could change. I'm not judging anyone who does, and maybe when I'm a certain age I might get other kinds of modifications, but I kind of like this idea of like, who will I be and what will I look like when I'm 80 naturally
Without a tattoo, like, you think that takes away? That's so interesting.
I think when I was young too, because I thought I would be like an artist and potentially like I wanted to be an actor and stuff.
Oh, and that was always a no-no.
It was kind of like, you're either gonna have to cover them or it's just better if you don't have tattoos.
Apparently, like, people, like, obviously so many celebrities have tattoos, but apparently, like, Dolly Parton's, like, covered in tattoos, but you just, like, don't know.
like she's good at
I don't know if that's
them.
lore about her, but it was a beginning of one of the science studies I read was so weird because they were trying to
She has the
understand.
inverse sleeve. It's just the full body, but
Yeah,
it's off
it's
right
like,
on her sleeve.
yeah, like, honestly, it's like kind of what they were saying because they're like, it's hard to actually understand how many people have tattoos. They have to use census data.
They're gonna say sensors.
But like that, no, but that's what I mean. They wouldn't be able to because a lot of people's are just hidden.
Yeah,
like
discreet for
ass
themselves.
cheek. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like maybe they have a little sun around their hole and we'll never know. That's my dream tattoo. Like a sun right on my
People have
little
that.
dirt star. What? Like, I guess
For sure some people have that.
Are you kidding? Gay guys? It's probably like 1/10 of a gay guy has a dirt star
Just
tattoo.
arrow is pointing right to it.
But yeah, I do think you are someone in my life who might
I
never
think
have
the
a tattoo.
other part of it is that I don't believe that I'm so indecisive. So making a choice about a tattoo that will be just as meaningful to me in the future, like there's very few things in my life that I believe I can make that big
You
of a
are
choice
so.
about.
It's like I totally. Yeah, gun to my head. If like any of our friends were like, "Who will never get a tattoo?" Would be like Mitch Moffat. Like, there's so many reasons why.
And well, because also like I can just see myself getting one and in 20 years being like, I don't like this.
Okay, so that leads to the study I read about whether tattoos age well.
Okay.
And they are finding that since there is a rise in the ability to get rid of tattoos, so it's usually done through cosmetic surgery clinics, they have found that there is an increase year on year of people getting tattoos removed.
Okay.
And one of the biggest increases was between 2011 and 2012, which was like, okay, what happened that year? But this could be because the technology is catching up to do it.
Wait, wasn't like the world gonna end then, and maybe a bunch of people just got tattoos?
The Mayan
and they were like,
calendar
I'm
ended.
still here.
Yeah, yeah, that's so good. They're like, okay, well, the Mayan said it's gonna end. I'm gonna do something crazy, and then they're like, oh, damn it, we're still. That's so good. But yeah. So there was a small study about tattoo regret. That is almost so small. It was like 500 and something people, like almost negligible. But they found a lot of people over the age of 40 start to regret their tattoos. So this idea that they are gonna stay and be cool as you age is something that is getting challenged with more and more research. Although I do think that tattoo removal might be increasing because tattoos are really popular and the technology's there.
Like
I was kind of annoyed by the
easier,
study.
yeah.
I was like, could this not just be sheer numbers and sheer access to removal?
Like the ability to do it.
But
in the first place.
their thought was that once you get into your 40s, it might actually become harder to be okay with the tattoos you might have gotten in your 20s.
Yeah, like if I had gotten one when I was like at peak Lady Gaga obsession, I would have put her whole face and body on my body. If I was like a tattoo person, and I would be like, I have to get that removed.
I remember I wanted a Clockwork Orange tattoo in high school that was like above my pubes to the left, like below my belly button to the top left of my pubes. And it was because I saw Orlando Bloom had a like sun there and it like turned me on. And I was just like, I'm so happy that I don't have this like the other side of my torso tramp stamp. And also like Clockwork Orange, like when I rewatched that movie, I'm like, this movie's fucked. Like it was
still have
just
never seen it.
It was just a sick movie that like when you're a little angsty teen, you're like, the world's fucked. Like I just was so obsessed with it, and like yeah, like I would for sure be getting that removed. And in fact, now I'm like, oh god, am I gonna get mine removed? No, I love my
I think you're old
tattoos.
enough that not that like people become who they'll be for the rest of their life. Like you have so many more years ahead of you. Not thinking of my little thing from earlier about being 80 and dying, but like you probably will be more similar to that person. Actually, maybe not. Maybe
No,
will
are you
regret
kidding?
that.
Yeah, I might regret this hummingbird.
But yours are so
heart.
simple that I don't think.
Okay, so my 2 tattoos. So the first tattoo, I was really scared. It's a wavelength on the back of my arm, purposely so I can't see it, and because I was so nervous.
Without a mirror.
And I put it in my calendar, and I was like, if in a year I still want this,
Yeah,
I'll
that's
get
smart.
it.
I
And
thought that was really
it
smart.
was good, and I love it when I like catch it in the mirror. I'm like, slay, dad, daddy. And then my other one was more impulsive. It was like we were in Medellin last fall, and it is a very famous place for tattoos. I like slowly realized while I was there, and I was like, this is such a memorable moment. And I was like, I become obsessed with bird watching, and we'd see so many hummingbirds, and I was like, I'm such a fast person, if you can't tell, because I talk so fast on this podcast, you might even think that I have a problem. And I do. I'm so fast, and I think I need to like honor that about myself, but also try and slow down. And so I was like, hummingbirds have the fastest heartbeat. So I designed it myself, and then and I love it, but I might go away. And sometimes I'm like, it's a hummingbird heart, and like some white gay guy will be like, oh, for the Katy Perry song Hummingbird Heartbeat, and I'm like, fuck.
Like, what does she call her followers? Is there a name?
Are they called the hummingbirds?
I think they're called heartbeats or something. I don't know.
Oh no, they're called kitty cats.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Imagine I had a little like cat
I
with
feel like
like
someone
a K.
has a heartbeat follower. I'm like, is it Jessie J?
Imagine I was like, this is my hummingbird heart for my Jessie J obsession. No. But Hummingbird Heartbeat is a good song. So sometimes if like, depending on how cute this white gay guy is, I'll be like, yeah, do you want to make out?
Yeah, no, and yours are like, I have no disrespect for anyone who has tattoos. I think.
Imagine you did.
I think I'm actually quite jealous of it. I think it means they know themselves so much more. When people are like willing and ready to change their body and put something so significant on their body that's permanent for all intents and purposes, like of course you can.
That's so
it.
funny you think that, because it's probably just like the grass is always greener vibe. Because I'm like, that does not what necessarily.
No,
mean.
you're right. It doesn't mean that. But
People
I
may
think,
not know themselves and get tattoos to make up for it.
Yes, that's fair. That's fair. And part of me thinks I should get a tattoo to teach myself the lesson that like it's okay to do things that you later want to change. I think my fear is like
link on your ass, link on your cheek,
sexy link,
sexy link on your cheek.
I'll think about it.
Okay, no, I'm just kidding. That would be the most
Okay,
intense.
I'm gonna bring up one of my studies. It's not like dark, but this was just one of the ones that popped up. I'm gonna preface this with obviously like tattoos are super cultural and specific to like places. So this was a study on German people, and so like this may not represent any other cultures.
Whenever Germany's mentioned, I'm like, oh boy, where are we going with this?
It was looking at people between 14 and 44 years old. And the finding was that people with a history of child abuse and neglect are more likely to get tattoos and piercings. But this is the difference here. So it says among the participants reporting child abuse, 48% had tattoo piercings, while people who hadn't had abuse, 35% had tattoos and piercings.
Okay.
So it's not like lots of people who haven't had something significant like that happen to them get tattoos and piercings, but there's like a greater odds that you might be interested in that. And seeing people discuss this, like obviously like being able to like claim your body and like have autonomy over yourself and make choices for yourself, like maybe a very powerful thing for a lot of people. But I thought that was interesting. And I also wanted to talk about how tattoos actually physically affect your body. Is now the time?
Yeah, because it is like crazy. It's like tiny needles getting like loaded with dye. Like when I watched because I couldn't see the first tattoo I got because it's like on a part of my arm where I like couldn't see it. But when I watched like the lady who I loved in Medellin do it, I was like, this is so scary. Like she's dipping this pen into this ink that I'm like, where's that ink from? Like what? Like you know what I mean?
Is
like
it clean?
She just opens this like little thing and you're like, oh my god. And then it goes. These needles loaded with dye go into your skin at 50 to 3,000 times per minute. So it's like
whoa, that's like a hummingbird wing.
Yeah, that's a hummingbird wing. Just whine in it. It's just sort of like, okay, yeah, this isn't like healthy.
Fair.
But
I mean, lots of things.
Okay, so
aren't.
but tell me the signs.
Okay, so the good news is most of the chemicals are effectively used up and spat out by your body. Like the stuff that's not obviously staying in your arm, but there are chemicals and sort of like
and they're
toxins
like
going in.
based.
So the potentially bad news is that like a more recent study came out, and they were like analyzing parts of the body, seeing if they could find traces of tattoo, and they found that many toxic elements end up in other parts of your body. So they found migration and long-term deposition, or like deposits of tattoo pigments and heavy metals in the lymph nodes, which is scary because heavy metals are really bad for you. Said there was conformational alterations of biomolecules that likely contribute to cutaneous inflammation and other adversities upon tattooing. That was like an obviously copy and pasted sentence.
I'm like, damn, cutaneous.
These particles led to chronic enlargement of the respective lymph node and lifelong exposure to these chemicals.
Sorry, what was it? I didn't hear. I was making
There's just chronic inflammation of your lymph nodes. So when there's actually like samples in the study, you can literally see pieces of like ink and the changes in different in tissue in the body, specifically the lymph nodes that are being affected. Now, whether this is actually causing long-term health effects, that's not what the study was about. We do know long-term irritation of lymph nodes is associated with adverse health effects. But again, this study wasn't trying to make that correlation. They were just like, we have found evidence that these chemicals made it to the lymph nodes.
And we do know that if you have a tattoo, you're cool as fuck. I'm kidding.
Yeah. And maybe that counterbalances like the death sentence. Just kidding. There's no death sentence.
But that is interesting.
And my last thing is, most of the metals they were finding seem to be related to non-black inks. So I think that, like obviously just saying like colorful colors.
Yeah, black ink also is the easiest to get rid of as well. If you wanted to ever like just
because maybe
if you wanted to try.
I don't know anything about that, but like perhaps the colorful ones are more complex in order to stay and be vibrant under your skin.
I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense. You'd have to have more chemicals in it for sure.
So I thought that was interesting. It made me be like, oh yeah, okay, wait, I don't need a tattoo. But there is part of me that's like,
I think you should do it out of like a thought experiment for yourself, but I just don't know if you'd ever be able to figure out what it would be.
Yeah, I think for me it would have to be like if and when Ernie or my parents die, it could be something related to that, because it would be like a memory that I never want to let go. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, a lot of people, that's what they are about.
And I think that's really sweet and a nice way to have like a piece of them with you, and I'm not worried I'm gonna ever be like, I'm not gonna want this on my body. Yeah, you know, if you're like, this is a memory to somebody else.
Yeah.
So
oh my god, Ernie's face on your gorgeous calves. But it is interesting. Like, I do think tattoos, like, you're also, one way of thinking about it is that you're like kind of just partaking in something that humans have done for so long. I loved learning about the history of it, because it was like, oh, this is it's not this like current modern trend. Like it's hip, like like there's so many cultures that relied on it. There was like this like Japanese quote from the past that was like, you actually aren't living unless you have a tattoo. Because it's like the whole point of tattoos is like to differentiate. Again, it's all about like spirituality, but to differentiate yourself in the afterlife. So if you don't get a tattoo, you like didn't live. But that's all from the perspective of like the afterlife, which it's like, if you don't believe in
by
that,
the way, there isn't one.
Well, okay, whoa, negative. I'm agnostic. Moving on. Let's do an episode about that, because you can't just drop info like that.
I'm kidding. There easily could be. I'll be freaking happy if there is.
No, you're bringing up too much existentially scary things for me right now. Let's move on.
See Ernie in heaven.
Also, people were like, tattooing was super popular, and then the spread of Christianity decreased it, because Christians thought that, like, no offense, but like kind of what you're saying, like the purity of your body. Like that tattooing was getting rid of this
tainting.
Yeah. And then through that sort of like colonization of the world, there was a huge decrease because of Christianity. Yeah. And then also people were like then in these Eurocentric places scared of getting tattoos by women.
Meaning
like that, like tattooing became this like really masculine thing that only men could tattoo. And there's like this famous British tattoo artist named Jessie Knight who like challenged the norms, and it's like Kate Winslet's probably gonna play her in like a in like a modern feminist tale. Well, but it is interesting because you're like, there is weird gendered stuff about it.
And like energy like that we've grown up being taught. Obviously nowadays it's like changed a lot, and you know that anyone can have a tattoo, and someone with lots of tattoos. But it's
boomer vibes. Boomers don't like them.
But I mean, even in Japan, it's like having tattoos symbolize like being part of a gang, and you're not allowed to enter certain spaces unless they're covered, or like, remember, like, I'm
the
sure
Yakuza. Yeah, I remember learning that like there was like this like 3 dots that meant like you were part of the Japanese Yakuza.
And you hear about, like, I'm gonna sound so stupid and white, but it's like, you know, you see like movies where in jail they're like people with like the tear tattoos. And it's like, how many people did you kill or something like that?
Yeah, apparently
you know?
that can mean like also that if it's like clear, it's an attempted murder, and it can also just mean that you're mourning the loss of someone and you want like revenge.
Fair, but
Like,
all
it's
I mean
not-
is
but it's related to this,
culturally in our
yeah.
media. Tattoos have been linked often to like violence in gangs, and
Yeah.
that may be like a thing that was done intentionally from like Christian groups
Yeah,
or things like that.
it
I don't
has a
know, but
whiff of that.
I grew up
Yeah.
in that environment, being like, oh, tattoos are like people who are like in jail and stuff.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Well, also jails, apparently there is an increase in like tattooing in jails, and there was a psychological study I read that was like it's rife for the wanting of tattoos, because there's like, whether it's to like align yourself with certain people in jail, but also it's like that's when you're missing people the most, and that a lot of people are like trying to
Feel
like
connected.
feel
connected.
And I was like,
to
oh, that's
those
interesting.
ideas.
That's a nice way for you to think about it. It's not about like whatever the reason
Yeah.
they're in jail
Yeah,
is that
yeah.
they're like isolated from society, so they're trying to like commemorate. And also when the idea of contraband, it's like you can like sneak these things in, and it like becomes like, I don't know. The study was like why jail is a psychologically like important place for tattoos. And I was like, that's interesting. But yeah, it's definitely not that now. But I do notice that like boomer energy is like the most, like obviously it's just Christianity, and it's just like there's people who are like I'll sometimes notice I'll be like around, I'm not gonna say names, like groups of boomers, and the conversation will be like, oh my God, they had so many tattoos. Like you're kind of just like, okay, so we're talking about tattoos now. Whereas like my brain, I don't think about someone's.
Yeah,
I'm always just like, oh, cool. They have really cool tattoos. Like,
I
I'm
agree,
never like,
yeah. I've
but
never
there is
judged
this
someone
energy of
else's.
like, and it's like they're trying not to judge, but they're talking about it. They're like, oh my God, the nicest lady. You know what I mean? Like they can't fathom that this like gorgeous, caring like woman
Right,
had, like,
could have multiple
many
tattoos.
Yeah, and it's just one of those moments where you're kind of like, LOL, like
Yeah.
we're from a different generation, because like I've never thought like that.
That's blowing their mind.
Yeah. They're like, oh my God, she was so great to the kids.
You'd
and
never
she
guess.
had tattoos. And you're just like, okay. And I also think it's gender. I
Oh
think
my
they
God,
would never
what are those
admit it,
things
but-
going to be for us when we're that age? you
Like
know?
it's so many things.
I know it's already happening, but I'm just curious the things that like our kids are gonna be like, you're so old, that we're like afraid or think it's crazy that someone's like babysitting our kids.
What do you
Is it
mean,
gonna be
like a robot?
Yeah, it must be a robot. No, it's gonna be something we can't predict, but in the way that like, yeah, they might be like, wow, our babysitter at first I was nervous she had tattoos, but she's great with the kids, or he's great with the kids.
Yeah, or like being like arguing with your friends about whether you're gonna CRISPR like your baby to like not have a disease.
Yeah.
Okay, we need to do an episode on CRISPR. I just finished an amazing article about
Like where it's at now.
about that guy
The one who went to jail.
went to jail,
Yeah.
and how he like genetically modified those kids,
Yeah.
and just like like
Juicy.
why it's so juicy. It's so juicy and it's so interesting. And like some people think that the gene that he was getting rid of that would quote unquote decrease the ability for the kids to have HIV also is linked to kind of like increased bone density and some other things that they were like, was he secretly trying to do eugenics?
By using that.
Yeah,
as
and then
the
being like, no, I'm trying to get rid
excuse.
of HIV, but like that gene's linked to other things that they're like, this guy was actually just trying to make like
Whoa.
to make a point later. Yeah,
New Yorker?
New Yorker.
Oh, I want to listen to
It's
that. or read
slay.
it.
Yeah, the history of them is like super cool. It
Do you
made me-
think? Sorry, you'll get any other tattoos?
like that? Truly reading about it this week made me want more
Because
because of the history. Because it was like, wait, this is so like. Sometimes I'm like, oh God, am I just like, you know. I'm just thinking of like Brittany Broski. Like it's cool. like I just feel like everyone who's like cool and in their 20s is just like one here, one. Like that kind of like eclectic sort of all over the place tattoo
Yeah.
look is like so normal. Like
Yeah.
I don't know why I went to Brittany Broski, but like Rosalia, like
Yeah.
Lady Gaga, like all these really cool people, like it feels trendy, and I'm like, I don't want to just do something because it's a trend.
Yeah.
And then tapping into the history of it being done for so long and it being countercultural
That makes
and
it
it being
cooler,
not
yeah.
Christian.
But
I was just like,
that means
oh.
probably in a generation or two it will invert, and it'll be like actually too many people have tattoos, so it's like cooler not
Yeah.
to.
Wait, say tattoo.
No, I did say it weird then.
No, but like
tattoo.
I listened to a
Tattoo.
science podcast and they kept saying tattoo. Like,
No, I
and
didn't
then I
mean
was
to
like,
say it that
I was
way.
like, is it because they watched Star Wars and they're like Tatooine?
No, it's Tatooine. Tatooine.
Tatooine. It's not Tatooine.
No, it's Tatooine.
They were literally like, I freaking hate science podcasts. They were sounding so pretentious. They're like, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to got the tattoo. And I was
Well,
like,
was he British?
no, but like, you know, like they were like tattoo. And I was like, stop it. But then you get scared because they're so smart.
Yeah, you're like,
and
they know something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They're like, oh, these dumb idiots who say tattoo. Anyways, I do think that I'll get more when I think about how impulsively I got one in Colombia. And I love it. Like I like.
Yeah. Both of yours I like. If I was to get something, I'd want it to be that, like, kind of symbolic, less like literal.
Yeah, and it does, like, look
cool,
good. Like I've never looked at either of my tattoos and had any regret, but that could change when I get my.
Your arm here is so blonde. It's wild. Maybe it's just the way the light's
No, it's
hitting
from the summer.
From the summer.
Because the
you're also a
sun
bit
bleaches
tanned.
it. But then in the winter, it's more brown.
Yeah, wow.
Well, yeah,
Oh,
what do you
wow,
mean? Because you can't even see it?
No, it's just like shimmering bright light to my eyes. I think it's like the reflection of that
Okay,
light.
that's just my nasty sweat.
No.
But yeah, look at my leg ones.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, actually. Now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, ew. It kind of looks like wrong.
No, it doesn't. It looks nice.
No, it looks sickly. Okay. Anyways, we love you
I
all.
had one more thing to say about tattoo, but
We'll let you know if Mitch ever gets one. We're going to be doing an episode on peanut butter. So hang in there.
Okay.
Oh, and share this with your friends and family.
Please.
No, it's the only way. Word of mouth is the only way you can really get podcasts out there. Okay. We love you all. Mitch will remember for next week what he wants to say. Unless he has 3 seconds. 3.
It was like the word
2,
tattoo.
1.
Oh, the song.
Oh.
Yeah,
All the things
the
she said, all the things she
band,
said,
right?
running through my head.
But that's the
running through
band
my
name,
head.
right?
Yeah, TATU, the Russian queer
Oh,
baiting.
whoops. Didn't know it wasn't spelled like
It probably
tattoo.
stands for something
That's
like
tattoo.
homophobic.
That's tattoo.
Yeah, that's tattoo.
Okay. See you later.
Post.